All right, we have a quorum, so we are officially starting our meeting. Thank you everyone for coming to this hybrid meeting. We have quite a few people online also, so I would say this is well attended. I'm going to go ahead and let the commissioners introduce ourselves because we don't have our nameplates tonight. But Commissioner,
my name is JP Simplitz. I'm the commissioner for 3D07, which includes Foxhall Village.
Marilyn Nowak, 3D07. I have the area west of Foxhall Road, below Reservoir Road, and up to Whitehaven Parkway at the north.
I'm Trisha Duncan. I represent 3D02, which is part of Palisades and part of Spring Valley.
And I'm Bernie Horn. I represent 3D05, which goes a little past Reservoir up to Arizona and various places, but it includes right here.
It includes the new project. So I'm going to hand it over. The owners of the property, Rishi Bhatnagar, is that correct? Close, sorry. And his spouse is here. I'm going to go ahead and let you all introduce. Will you be presenting? Okay. Christine, yeah, please come up. Oh, I'm sorry. We have Commissioner Elkins online. Commissioner Elkins, would you like to?
Yes, I'm Commissioner Chuck Elkins. I represent 3D01, Wesley Heights, all the way down to MacArthur Boulevard.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Chuck. Okay. We are going to turn it over to you, but if you, I'm going to have you pause after just one or two sentences to see if people can hear you.
Okay, all right. Well, Christine Rowdy and I have Lee Templin here with me. We are from Golston Stewart, the Land Use Council on this project. Is this a good kind of
yes, Commissioner Elkins or Brad, could you please tell us if you could hear that loud and clear?
I could hear.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, so we are here to present the project that's right across the street, being proposed for across the street at 4885 MacArthur. It's the site of the Black Coffee, the Dodge Chrome, and Cafe Vino. And if you were at the March ANC meeting, then you've seen us before and you've heard a little bit about the project. We have filed an application since that time, and it's a bit different than what we presented at that ANC meeting. So we're going to talk about the differences tonight. But one of the things that you did hear at that meeting is that this program is being designed to retain the existing retail spaces. So we do not intend to raise the retail, but keep those spaces, and the residential that's being proposed for above it would be done with the retail in place. And so there would be some impact to the retail. We're not saying that the retail wouldn't close. But altogether, we are proposing a residential project above the existing retail. It would consist of about 19 units. What you saw at the ANC meeting in March was a program that did not include parking. And so one of the reasons why we were presenting in March was because we anticipated filing a BZA application seeking relief from the parking requirements. We are now providing parking on site, so we no longer require relief from the parking requirement. However, we do still need relief from the loading requirements, from the rear yard requirements, and the location of the bike spaces. So we do have a BZA application pending for this project. Location of what? The bike spaces. So the long-term bike spaces. And just to get into that a little bit more, the loading, the retail spaces on site trigger a loading requirement. The residential that's being proposed, those 19 units, they don't actually trigger a loading requirement. We are not providing the loading on site. We are instead proposing 2 loading spaces, one on B and one on MacArthur, and we're going to walk through the plan so you'll see where all of this is. I know I'm speaking a little bit abstractly right now, but we'll walk through everything. The rear yard, the existing retail does not currently provide a rear yard. It's not required to, but the residential being proposed above it would. And given the shape of that lot, it would be very challenging to provide that setback. So we are seeking relief for the rear yard. And then finally, the bike spaces, the regulations say you can't put the bike spaces more than one level above grade. We're putting it on the level above grade on B Street, but it's 2 levels above grade from MacArthur. I think it's a gray area, and we didn't think it was going to be particularly controversial. We'll find out, but we're going to the board, so we're seeking relief for that as well. So we do have our entire project team here. We have the plans. We're going to walk through them. We have our architect, Charles Warren. So I will turn it over to you to walk through the plans, and we'll highlight the changes that we've made since you saw this in March. We heard a lot of commentary. I hope that you see this as a improved program. A lot of the changes that we made really weren't relevant to the belief that we were seeking. Obviously, parking was, but there's some other changes that we heard that the community wanted. So we really have tried to be responsive. So with that, I will let you go for it.
Do we want, okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna show the slides. So you'll have to prompt the person running the slideshow next slide, but we'll pull it up now.
And this is the mic, so you'll need to stand.
Yeah. Brad, could you share your screen?
We've got the lights, we're looking at the slide.
I think that we can.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I got some of them to go down. Is that better? Yeah.
Beautiful.
Great.
Just project this.
I'll do my best.
Thank you.
I'm a soft talker, so I'll do my best here. But as Christine mentioned, it's 4885 MacArthur Boulevard. This is MU4 zoning for folks that weren't here before. That's a mixed use zone. The next slide is fine. Good.
You talk
I'm trying. I'll do my best. The lot is around 8,150 square feet. It is existing. You probably know the site pretty well. It's across the street. It extends from Dodge Chrome to Black Coffee. Black salt isn't included in our site, so you see a little bit of a weird configuration there. Next slide, please. So as Christine mentioned, we were here in front of the ANC back in March, and we took to heart a fair amount of the comments that the ANC brought to us. One of the areas that is sort of the elephant in the room is the parking relief that we didn't ask for. We were asking for relief for that before, but we went back to the drawing boards and are now providing parking. We took 3 units out of the building to do that, but no longer needing parking relief for that. One of the comments that we got, excuse me?
How many parking spots you provide?
You know, we're gonna, you'll get to that when you get to the parking level? Okay,
Boom.
all right.
Thank you.
Questions?
Yeah, so we're gonna hold questions until the end. So please write down your questions because we will have, give everyone an opportunity to speak.
Great, thank you. One of the bits of feedback we heard from the community was adding some balconies to bring some light to the building, which will I'll illustrate when I get to the renderings. Material changes along those lines as well. So we looked at some different masonry materials to speak a little bit to the vernacular of MacArthur Boulevard, which I'll illustrate when we get to the renderings. And then we had a little bit more of a defined trash strategy for the residential building. Summary relief, the one that's not up here is parking. We've taken that off the table. We still need relief for retail loading, the rear yard and bike parking location, as Christine mentioned. And I'll go over sort of where that lands in the building as we move through. Next slide, please. Site plan, not a lot of changes from the last iteration. We're still looking at providing a closed court up against the black salt building. The residential entry, which is the small triangle, red triangle on the B Street side, we shifted that a little bit more west, which does impact the retail space a little bit more than the previous scheme, but it allows us to keep the parking ramp to the residential parking area or the existing parking area.
Sorry, could you just repeat that? What did you move to the west?
We moved the residential lobby to the west a little bit.
Where is the lobby?
Give me 1 minute, we'll get to that. I'm just trying to give an overall view of the site plan. The next 2 slides will have that in more detail. And then we are showing some, we can skip. We are showing some retail, the loading areas. At the existing on the left side of the image there, the west side of the property in public space, 2 typical loading areas. And then some street, short-term bike parking spaces. Next slide, please. This is the existing ground floor plan. Just highlighting a few things here. So we are planning on, keeping the existing retail intact as much as possible. So no real changes from the loading, or sort of the retail components, other than we do have some impact to the ceiling because of the retail or the residential lobby, which I'll illustrate in the next slide. Enclosed retail trash area that would be located on the western portion of the site. The way that would work is the trash cans would be rolled out to either one of the loading areas picked up off the street. And then we are proposing a retail loading area on MacArthur Boulevard. That's in the existing curb cut location. And just highlighting the short-term retail bike parking spaces that are required. So those are the U-lock bike racks that you see. Those are in public space. Next slide, please. So this is where you can see the
Spoke out this way instead of to the screen, easier to hear.
Sure. But it's hard to do both. So the residential lobby here, you can see we've located it a little bit further west. The existing parking ramp is where it is. We're not moving that. That would still go to it. The red triangle there is the residential lobby. The sort of diagonal mark here. Do we have a pointer thing? Can you use it all? Erwin probably you have one. The existing parking ramps to the right of that, so that would go to the existing parking area that we've reconfigured. We have 6 parking spaces here now, 2 are car share spaces. So from a zoning map, funny zoning map, that equates to 10 parking spaces, which meets our zoning requirement for parking. We are locating the trash area, sort of covered by the heads up here, but the residential park trash area is here. Again, that would be rolled out down the ramp and picked up off of B Street.
Can you move the heads on?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Sure, no worries.
You can go back to the previous slide.
There we go. There we go. You can see highlighted in red, the residential trash area. Where the residents would dump their trash, it would get rolled out to B Street and picked up off of B Street. A truck can't really make the turning maneuvers to get into that parking area, so we'll have to do it off of the street there. And then residential bikes, this is where we're meeting the compliance and the requirement for residential bike parking spaces, but as Christine mentioned, there's a little bit of a gray area about where it's located in the building. It is the first level of residential space, but it's technically the second floor of the building, so that's the trick there we're looking at. Next slide, please. Typical floor plan of the building, which there's really only 2 typical floor plans. It's the 3rd and the 4th floor. This hasn't substantially changed since the last meeting. There's 7 units per floor, 2 2-bedroom units at the you see in blue, and the rest are 1-bedroom units, 5 1-bedrooms. Next slide, please. And this is the penthouse level, 2 2-bedroom units, a small amenity space, and then private roof decks for the 2 2-bedroom units, and a small common roof deck for the off of the amenity space. Next slide, please. These are the renderings that we've updated. Just wanted to highlight a few things that we did coming out of the meeting. Overall, we reduced the glazing on the building. It's still, glazy and kind of nice. We obviously, we're architects and want things to, be nice and airy and glazy. But we reduced that overall. We've incorporated a brick. It's a modern kind of gray brick, but given that there's a lot of vernacular gray brick buildings along MacArthur, we wanted to incorporate that here. We added balconies to the bays, so that's really just to kind of give it a little bit more life, a little bit more personality. I think when you have the parade here, there'll be people out there hanging out. And then we've added some wood accents to just sort of soften the feel of it when you're walking underneath these bay projections. We are proposing to maintain the outdoor seating area and we're reworking the facade here, but adding awnings to sort of replicate the mansard element that's there now. Next slide, please. And this is the view from B Street. So this would be across the street from where we're standing now. Still trying to maintain that 3-story read, so we're breaking down the massing as you sort of back up to the more of the residential neighborhood. The existing parking entry on the left side there would remain, so you still drive up there to park. And then the residential entry is shifted to the west, sort of mid building. And then the way the grade slopes, we really need the lobby to meet the grade. And that's what starts pushing down into that commercial level below. So there's a little bit more impact with this scheme than the previous scheme. But we still think we can contain that within that center retail bay, which is Cafe Vino at the moment. Next slide, please. And just another view from what we're calling a plaza element, where we're trying to upgrade that plaza, improve the seating and creating a trellis element there for shade. But still maintaining the outdoor seating areas, adding these wood accents just gives you a little bit better look at it. And then the balconies that we've added to the elements. Next slide, please.
Penthouse, visibility?
It's not really visible there. It's set back on all sides, so it's except for the eastern side, it's set back on the other side.
So there is a whole other.
There is a whole other level.
different-
So you said it's just on which street is that?
The B Street side,
The B Street.
yeah. So
You're basically standing at the bus stop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, it's like you're standing at the bus stop here, correct?
But there is another level.
There is another level.
Is that on the right of that?
See that right?
Piece there?
Yeah, that's the edge of the penthouse at the 5th floor.
So how many stories is the building?
It's technically 5 stories. With the penthouse is the 5th story. It depends on who you ask. If you ask the construction code guys, it's 5 stories. If you ask the zoning guys, it's 4 plus a penthouse. And this is just another look standing at the Waxhaw on the right, kind of looking back to the west. So those are the updates I had, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
So I would like us to pick a slide that we could at least talk on. We'll keep this one up there, and if people have specific questions about a look or a thing, we'll move through the slides.
If I could just add one last thing.
Yes,
Ethan. We do have a hearing date of September 27. We'll be back before the community, but just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of that date.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to the commissioners to ask some questions first, and then we are going to open it up to the audience. And I do want people at home to hear the audience questions, so we might have to do some funny stuff with the microphones, but commissioners, who would like to start? Commissioner Horn.
The V Street, can you show the V Street drawing, the
rendering?
rendering? There you go.
That's it.
Okay, so why is the residential entry at grade? Is that an ADA problem?
Precisely, yeah, it needs to be at grade for handicap accessibility.
And so that's what's going to wreck the retail area for a while.
I don't think I would categorize it as wrecking it. I think there's parts of it that are impacted, and it's really the back of house spaces of Cafe Vino. So some of that will be impacted by that entry, correct?
So how long will they have to close is really the bottom line.
I don't think I know an answer to that. We're studying it now to know what we've had a structural report done. We're still analyzing it with our structural engineers to see what the impact would be in terms of reinforcing it. So there's some of that we're still kind of working through now. We think it's probably more than a couple weeks, or probably less than 6 months. If I could put bracket in the fence.
But you have to create a new roof for them in the back.
Correct. I mean, that, not really a roof, it's their ceiling.
Their ceiling, yeah.
Yeah, so that would be impacted there. But it's really only that one retail space that gets impacted by the lobby pieces of it. The structural report indicated that the columns are strong enough, the footings are strong enough, but the slab might need some reinforcement in areas. And that's where we think that we need to come up with a solution for that. There are some options out there. There's not to nerd out too much, but there's carbon reinforcement. There's some other mitigation techniques that we can do that we've done on older buildings before. And that's what we're exploring now. We don't have an answer to that just yet.
So
Just to understand, the slab under Cafe Vino?
The ceiling of Cafe Vino where the
The
parking
slab of the
deck
building,
is,
okay.
yeah, that's the part that we're analyzing.
So does that mean that it may be possible that Black Coffee could get back into operation before Cafe Vino?
But we're gonna do everything we can to lessen whatever impact would be on the retail. That's the part I don't know yet. I mean, I don't want to speculate too much on the timing of that because I think there's just a few too many unknowns right now to figure that out, but that would be the intent, is to try to minimize any intervention in any of the spaces, but Cafe Vino is more impacted than Black Salt is, Black Coffee. Black Coffee is not that impacted by the addition in the same way.
So that cross section that we saw with that first floor ceiling coming down into the lobby, that doesn't impact Black Coffee side, only as far as Cafe Vino. Okay.
Can I ask about the garage? So is this garage stay open?
Are you asking during construction or just?
No, I mean,
At
once
the
it's
end.
finished.
Yeah, it's an open garage. We could put a door on it. We don't have a door planned right now. It's an open garage entryway.
Oh, that's not a door that's shown in that picture there?
No, it's just sort of seeing into that space.
Okay,
So anything, pull in.
Well, right now the parking is split between the residential and the retail. So yeah, just like anybody can pull in now.
What did you say that door representing at the garage?
there is no door here. It just looks like a door, but it will remain open is what they're saying.
Oh, it's open. Okay.
You said it's 10 spots?
To the public.
It's public.
That's what he's
Six
saying.
spots, 2 of them are car share spots. In zoning, those qualify as 3 spots each, so it's a total of 10 zoning spaces. Like zip car, so if you're part of that program, you have a membership and you can borrow that car to go run your errand, you bring it back to the same spot, so it can be available to someone else to use.
So there are 4 regular parking spaces and one of them is a handicap space.
6. Wait, no, 4, you're correct.
4,
You're
because
correct.
2 of them are
You're
used,
correct.
yeah. So I mean, for the general public or for the residents, there's 4.
Of which one's handicapped?
Of one's handicap.
Correct.
And that's replacing how many spots are on the roof today?
I believe that there's 16. That's right.
So I've got some questions.
Yeah.
Can I ask?
Yes, please go.
And they're all related to parking. You've got 18 parking spaces currently for the retail that you have now, is that correct?
There's 18 spaces there, I think, yeah.
And you're getting rid of those once you build the apartments.
As soon as construction starts, I would assume those will go away.
Correct.
And there's some parking on the street that will be given up, is that correct? There, you can park at a meter now. And they're getting rid of those meter spaces?
On MacArthur,
Yes,
No, all of the spaces on MacArthur Boulevard will remain.
Except for the
Loading zone.
Yeah, about East Street though. Oh, there's 2 hours right now. Actually, can we pull the site plan up?
Can you do the site plan that shows the loading? It's one of the first ones, Brad.
Yeah, that's fine. Well,
This one's good. It's got the 2 loading zones.
yes, okay, great. Well, for the record, good evening, I'm Erwin Andrus with Rose Site Associates, we're the patient consultants on the project. So 2 things, so related to the loading, there are 2 areas that are identified by hatches. One on V Street and one on MacArthur Boulevard. Those areas are essentially areas where currently parking is restricted. Because the area, the MacArthur Boulevard one is essentially near, there's a curb cut there because I believe during the pandemic, there was actually cars going through that triangular piece.
If I could give us a little background
Yeah.
before we go on. All right, so on V Street, there was an entrance to the parking lot that is now Black Coffee's outdoor seating. And then there was also a curb cut on MacArthur Boulevard. So when 7th Hill was there, it was used as a 5-car parking lot. When the pandemic happened, the curb cuts remained. And at the V Street side, ballards were put in there so nobody could run their car in. Unbeknownst to you, obviously, I think, Trammell Crow and their building of their project was required to do a sidewalk down that V Street side. And in conjunction with the neighborhood and DDOT, they closed that curb cut. That no parking sign is actually supposed to be, there's a 311 request in to move it down closer to the curb.
Okay,
So the neighborhood was expecting those additional parking spaces
okay.
from the Trammell Crow project. So, we see it loading here. Can I ask why you guys are, doing 2 loading? When
So-
there's none now?
So, well, the intent is the one on MacArthur Boulevard is actually there to serve the retail. Because what happens right now, and I believe many of you have seen it, that when there are deliveries to either Cafe Vino or Black Coffee, there are times where they either double park
They always double park.
or find any available curb space if it's close enough. And
Right.
so the intent was to identify a loading space that's close enough that it would encourage and sign it as a kind of a commercial loading space. So these vehicles aren't double parked. So that was the intent for the MacArthur Boulevard one.
So why do the one on B?
So the one on B, again, we, as a residential building with 19 units, we foresee, everyday, normal occurrences like the Amazon guy shows up, potential food deliveries show up, Uber. So we wanted a location where it was relatively close to the building so that it can be used. And, the intent was to locate it there so it wouldn't impact any existing spaces, not knowing kind of the background that you just gave.
Can you just help us, what is the standard length of a standard parking space on the street?
On the street, it's for parallel parking space, it's 22 feet.
Okay, thank you.
And in that respect, our loading space is, I believe, 30 feet.
And so plus the 10 feet, so we're basically looking at 2 parking spaces, potential parking spaces that will each go to loading. 2 on MacArthur and 2 on V.
Yes, and like I said, those areas are currently areas where there isn't parking. So, the intent was, yes, so, I want to be completely transparent, that was why we located them where they are.
Yeah.
Because.
But you
we wanted-
recognize that there are people parked there right now, last night, tomorrow morning.
Yes,
They are
yes, absolutely.
regularly used as parking space.
Absolutely, and there's, but we do want a place that's dedicated, given some of the uses, so that these vehicles that do show up for either the retail component or the residential component are double parked.
Yeah.
And that's the intent.
Hey, Erwin, I'm
Yes.
sorry, I have a question that follows up on all that. I
Sure.
just want to make sure that I'm clear. A few moments ago, we heard that the residential does not trigger a loading zone requirement, but yet what you just explained was that is for residential. So which one is?
So by zoning, you need to have at least 50 units before you trigger an actual in-house in building,
Okay.
loading space.
Okay, so the one on the street is more for convenience?
Well, it's more so that, so that these
Bicycle.
vehicles aren't double parked,
Okay.
because we can go in, and satisfy the loading, requirement by not providing some sort of curbside loading space. But we, practically speaking, we understand that people are gonna have those needs.
I understand. I just
Okay.
want to make sure that everyone's clear
Yes.
that this is not triggered by a zoning requirement.
No,
Per se. And so I think as part of our due diligence here today, we as a community need to think through how, how parking is effective for all uses, commercial, residential, retail, loading, all of those things. So I just want to make sure that that point is clear.
I'm gonna give Commissioner Simplitz back the.
Sorry.
Oh, she's good? Okay, please go.
and
Okay.
actually, can I make another point, relative to that? So loading, typically happens, between daylight hours, right? And so, in some parts of the city, like 14th Street, for example, they're loading spaces, commercial loading spaces during the day. But in the evening, when some of the retailers don't necessarily need that loading, it turns over into either metered parking or RPP parking. So the ability to do that here is, there's some optionality there.
And I
that
think
we
that's
think about.
something that we all want to talk through and
Okay.
consider.
While we're on the loading zone specifically, one of the areas of special relief is permit no loading space on the property. So I'm a little bit confused. If you don't need loading on the property,
Yeah,
but you.
so there's two
Yeah.
components. So when you look at a mixed use development like this, there are two uses that practically speaking require loading. So what we're saying is that the residential component, by zoning, given that it's a relatively low number of units, you don't need a specific loading space for that in the building. However, the trigger for retail loading is, I believe, 3,000 square feet. So if you have retail loading that's more than 3,000 square feet, then technically you need a loading dock within the building. And so that's where we need the relief.
Okay, all right, thank you, that's helpful.
Did you have other
Yeah,
questions in
yeah.
your list?
If she's done.
Oh, no, back
Okay.
back to you, please.
So you have 18 parking spaces on the site now. You have 2 parking spaces on B and 2 parking spaces on MacArthur right now. And they're all gonna go away. So that's 22 that are gonna go away. Is that correct?
The way you're characterizing them is like kind of mixing them up, and what I want to do is be intentional about separating them. So the 2 on MacArthur and the 2 on B Street right now don't exist, and it's my understanding that the ANC has petitioned them to actually be spaces. So the short answer, yes, those are not going to be parking spaces unless we come up with a system where during the day, call it 9 to 5 or whatever those hours are, it's a loading space. And in the evenings, when there's more demand consistent with the restaurants and some of the residents coming home from work, that they revert to either metered spaces or residential parking spaces. So I think there's an opportunity there that we can explore. So there's that. Now, with respect to the actual spaces that are on top of Black Coffee, that surface lot is roughly, I guess, 18 spaces. That lot currently serves a mix of people. Some of them are Black Coffee employees, some of them potentially are Black Coffee patrons. There may be other people that use it, because right now it's actually not controlled. There's nobody checking permits. And I don't know if I want to say this out loud, but nobody's really managing it. So we're not sure who uses it yet. And at some point, we're going to take a look at that as we prepare a report for GDOT. But yes, so the users, the potential users today those spaces are going to go away. We're replacing it with these spaces that are meant to meet the parking requirement. And so I'm preempting your question. So what happens to all those people? And so the short answer is a couple things. Some of them are users that we're going to have to coordinate with with some of the other retail users, whether it's the users that are part of a property like Black Coffee and Cafe Vino, or some of our neighbors that include the liquor store, that include Black Salt. We're still having discussions with them because obviously whatever we do with that lot is going to impact their operations. And so we're having ongoing dialogue to determine how we accommodate those people that are going to be displaced, because that's the question, right? Like, what happens to the displacement of the people who are potentially parking there?
So the bottom line is that they're gonna go down. So the bottom line is that we're gonna go from 18 parking spaces on the site to 6, 2 being these zip car spaces,
Mhm.
1 handicap space, and 3 regular spaces.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
And that's going to be for the existing commercial tenants.
Yeah,
And for the 19 apartments.
that's correct.
And can I just add to that, the Abra license for Cafe Vino requires that the employees park in the roof deck.
Mhm.
So how are they only allowed to have 3 employees with cars going forward?
So again, these are the things that we're gonna have to coordinate with the retailers, because, if you remember, when we came in March, we had 0 parking, and we understand that was an issue because of the competing uses. At the time, we potentially, we said that we would look at off-site options, and currently, if you look at a map, there's only one real viable off-site option. And it's the potential, it's the existing parking lot on U Street. It's currently being fully utilized by a lot of construction contractors associated with Trammell Crow's building. And on 48th Place, there's actually no parking because of all the construction activities. So yes, we completely recognize and understand that there's a crunch for parking right now, especially due to the construction activities. At some point, and we're hoping we can time the delivery of this project to take advantage of Trammell Crow being done, that some of those spaces will get freed up. We understand that, the 48th Place parking will return. We understand that a lot of the spaces relative to the construction contractors would potentially go away. We have had initial conversations with the operators, to see what flexibility they have to provide potential spaces. And again, that's part of the exploration that we're going through.
But you're gonna have construction.
Yes, absolutely. And we understand that. We understand all of this is part of the equation. We're trying to see what we can do to be able to accommodate the construction while mitigating some of our impacts as much as we can.
So I've got another question. The owner of this project lives in Maryland, is that correct? And you have, in your own house, you've got a 5-car parking garage, 5 cars, is that correct?
I don't know if we need to get.
We did, because I'm asking the questions. You have a 5-car parking lot and you're like.
I think that's a,
According
I really would like to keep it focused on the project rather than.
That's the questions here.
I understand, but
The question that I have, do you have a 5-car parking garage? So you're not gonna answer whether you have a 5-car parking garage?
I don't have.
well, because we're talking about a mixed unit building and retail and.
I've heard your question, your objection. Go ahead and answer.
I don't have to answer.
Okay.
So
So the next question that I have, if we're done with parking. you wanna-
Wait, I actually have another parking question. Sorry, go ahead, JP, I'm sorry.
What do you expect to, as far as rent, rent the market rent, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms?
Oh, I'm the traffic engineer. I'm probably the last person you want to.
And I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but this is pretty early on, and typically we wouldn't have those figured out at this point. We don't know the
You have
market.
a pretty good idea, because you wouldn't be this far along if you didn't have the answer to that, but.
No, I'll be honest, like in all my experience of doing this, this is early, like when they deliver, the market depends on the market demand at that point.
Should be
But
not
probably
like.
between 20
Oh, right, so maybe when I bring IC units, and the rest will be market rates, whatever
I
those.
said between 2,500 and 30.
For 1 bedroom.
No, you said 1 to.
1 and a 2, so there's 2 sets of units, right? What for the 1 bedroom,
Approximately 2,500,
and then for a 2 bedroom?
approximately 3,500.
And there would be IZ incorporated as well.
That's why I asked market rent.
Right, no, I understand, just wanted to be clear that that's not all of the units.
How many IV units?
Round 3.
so, hold on one second, because I do you have more questions? Because I
I
have.
have some later.
Okay, all right. Can we go to the front rendering of the building? Because I have questions about the storefront.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of my personal big issues is keeping our existing tenants operating. So I am very concerned that this plan is not exactly well thought out into the longevity, but I couldn't tell from the drawings if these glass storefronts obviously look new. Do you know how far those are off from the curb, off the top of your head?
It's in the same location.
So is, right now there's an awning that hangs off of it. Is it coming out to in front of that, or it's where the existing thing is?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
exactly where the base is now. We're essentially just reskinning it in place, so it's not projecting out any further towards the street.
And I know you have all of the storefronts looking the same, and I've asked this before. Are you anticipating forcing people to do their signage in this very conforming way? Or are you gonna allow the building to still have unique storefronts like Black Coffee? Are they gonna be able to keep their look?
I think the intent is to unify the storefront glazing, but the signage, I think we haven't really gotten that far, but I think there's flexibility in the signage.
Will they all need that same awning?
The awning might have some flexibility there too. We were trying to clean it up, actually. The mansard awning thing, I think it's, it looks like.
Yeah, yes, that one looks like, terrible, but they do,
Yeah.
they have done like some nice things with it. And then you've got Black Salt, which has its own new brand new storefront.
Right, which we're not, obviously not touching Black
Right.
Salt. I mean, I think it would, I think there's some flexibility there. I think it would be nice to kind of unify some of the sort of awning design there. So that is the intent that we're showing here. We do have some flexibility.
Can I confirm what I think I heard you say, which is the glass storefronts are not going to move? They'll be reskinned, but they're not
Right,
moving out.
it's reskinning of it, yes.
So will the storefronts, Black Coffee and Cafe Vino, I think this is less important for Dodge Chrome, will they still have the same footprint for outdoor dining that they have today?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's the same.
So my other question is in terms of building systems, because right now their venting and their HVAC is on the roof. So I'm assuming it's going to end up it's not going to stay in the garage, it's going to end up on the roof.
Yeah.
So like in terms of how that works for them opening up while the building is still being built, like what is the plan? I'm having a hard time envisioning something like this working.
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated, but, the idea would be we kind of keep them, we'd probably bring new systems in at the roof. We probably wouldn't try to relocate the existing ones. We keep them running as long as you can. And then when we have to make the connections, we'll make the connections. That's probably I'm not a construction sequencer. I just know that that's the likely way to do it. If you bring new systems for them. You don't really want to reuse old systems, relocate them, you bring in new systems, locate them on the roof. You have them basically.
And is that
ready
something
to
the
go.
landlord will provide to the tenants?
I'm not the landlord.
Maybe that direct your question to the landlord.
Is that something that like as part of the building, you'll be providing the tenants?
And the unit won't be visible.
No, they'll be screened at the high roof. They won't be.
They don't add another layer onto the building.
No, they would be.
Another floor of this building, isn't there?
Yeah.
So, before we,
Where is that not shown?
so a couple of things, the people at home can't hear your questions until I move the microphone. But I would like to ask any of the commissioners here if they have more, and I also wanted to get to Chuck Elkins.
Can we please, Brad, go to the slide, the schematic that shows the trash areas? Yes, perfect. So, can I get an idea of the scale of the residential trash footprint that's in the gray square footage?
Yeah, it's probably About 12 feet by 14 feet-ish, something like that. You can fit 10 cans or something in there.
Okay, so 10 cans, let's go with that for 19 apartments.
Mhm.
For residential.
And the retail.
Well, the
Yeah, it's
retail is over
separate
here.
trash.
So the retail today is multiple dumpsters. I think you mentioned cans for the retail, so are,
Well, I don't know what the, if they'll be cans or small dumpster.
well, I'm just thinking about I mean, 2 of the 3 retailers are food service, so it's not a small and inconsequential amount of trash. So I'm wondering about how much trash will be in what's now a public facing area in this area, and how will the garbage trucks get there? Because today the dump trucks come and, back up right to the dumpsters.
Right, so right now the trash would be rolled to B Street or to MacArthur for the retail component, picked up off of that, probably B Street. And then the same would be for the residential piece, it rolled down the existing ramp and picked up off of B Street. Yeah, there will be some frequency because we don't have, a giant area for trash, so yeah, it'll be picked up pretty frequently.
And that's a third-party contractor who comes in,
Contractor.
wheels it out, and then puts it back.
Correct.
And what was the footprint on the retail trash pad there on B Street?
It's about 15 feet in one direction, maybe 12 feet in the other. It's kind of trapezoid shape,
Okay.
but
Does it have sort of double doors
yeah,
that,
big doors, big double doors.
So something less than 10 cans in there as well.
It would probably be a large dumpster, not a large dumpster, but a wheeling dumpster.
like the ones with that Black Salt has, some of them are double decker
Yeah,
and skinny.
but right now, I think the trash is shared with Black Salt, so there'd be a separating those functions.
Okay, I have some concerns because we are now putting trash right next to the plaza, where we're anticipating community members will want to sit and eat and enjoy their cocktails. And as we all know, trash brings vermin. And so we're taking trash from up for folks on the phone, up in the lobby area. That yellow area is where the trash is today.
It's actually on the other side.
On the farther, right, I'm sorry. Above the white triangle over there, and we're bringing it right down into the area where people will be. Okay.
Opposite the library.
And opposite the library. Yes.
Commissioner Elkins, did you have any questions?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you. Did you want to?
Yeah, I've got a couple more.
Okay.
Where do you expect the people that live there to park?
What was the question?
The question Commissioner Simkowitz asked was, where do they anticipate the residents who will live there to park?
We have to be upfront with it, right? They may have to figure out offsite parking. That offsite parking is our name.
Yeah.
No, that's the space where the contractors park, that parking lot.
So what happens when that parking lot spills up into something else?
Parking lot's good. Why would they do that when they can park in front of my house?
I think one of the ideas that had been proposed at the ANC meeting was having one of the, like a community car, basically like a residential car that they could schedule and use. So that was really the background to incorporating the car share spaces, because it basically implemented that and was available then for the residential as well as the retail patrons as they would want, probably more like the residential.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the concept of the car share is. So we do think that that's gonna be effective for residential. And as Rishi said, it's gonna be, they're gonna know coming in how that there is no parking available for their site, or that they're gonna be comfortable using their bike, public transportation, or the car share.
Or their
So-
RPP, right? They're gonna be eligible for
There you go.
RPP.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
consent to and I'm gonna ask this of the owner, to a zoning order that says that would you consent to no residential parking for the people that are gonna live in your building? And zoning order,
Council.
I think that that's something we would consider, we talked about this last time, with the leases. I think that we're happy to look at that, but with the block, that requires the entire retailership, so like, that's something that's gonna be challenging for us, because we don't control the entirety of the.
You could consent to a zoning word that prohibits anybody living in your building from having a residential.
But that's not gonna be enforceable, the way that they would look at that,
It would be
but we through our
under
leases.
agreement with us and the zoning commission, because that becomes an order.
We would have to look at this, we've had discussions with DDOT where that's been problematic,
But
so we will get back to you.
I asked you that 2 months ago, and
My understanding is that you had
60
asked
days.
us about precluding it from being available on the RPP database, which then includes the entire block. So I'm sorry if I misunderstood that, but that was my understanding.
so you could consent to an order that prevents anybody from living there from getting an RPP in your zoning order.
Well, what I'm saying is I would have to talk to DDOT to see what their thoughts
No,
are.
you could agree with that. You don't need to.
I'm not gonna answer that now, no, because I'm not gonna create a situation where we have an
But you
unenforceable
have the
condition.
ability to do that as
I-
part of the zoning order.
But it is not enforceable, we don't really, so that's what I need to figure out, and I will get you that information.
Yes, Mark.
I have a couple different kind of questions. First of all, you've got a very tough problem.
Okay, I'm gonna,
Is it just
actually,
a parking question specifically?
yeah, but I need you to sit closer to the microphone so the people at home can hear you.
I will-
You can, if you sit right there, it'll pick you up nice and clear.
When I was listening online, because I was on last time at the meeting, I wasn't in person. It would be helpful if everybody speaks at that microphone.
So this is why I wanted to, and we need to move this along a little bit. I almost want to move that microphone out there, and if you have a question, come up.
Because it becomes
Okay.
really hard to hear, and maybe Commissioner Hawkins can.
And then we might move over so you all can be closer to the owl. All right, this will pick you up nicely. Careful not to trip.
Okay, I'll talk to it, not the people. Anyway, you have a very difficult time ahead. It's a very tough site, and there's a whole lot of belief about the community and its success, and the retail here has made that very much a success as a scale. One of the things that would be useful on the parking is we're hearing lots of different numbers. I would appreciate if you could do a simple chart that says, this is what was there before COVID and before the new development was built. These are some of the modifications that have been based on the COVID changes, and this is what we now have, so we can just see what all the numbers and where they're occurring. I mean, my own feeling is, don't tell Anthony I said this, is I wouldn't mind the double parking in front to have parking spaces, because that's what goes on now, and it's normal, and this does some things. Okay, parking aside. Second thing is, I'm delighted that you have added brick in, because it is a module and a size and a pattern of neighborhood, so that's good. I question the modern gray, because that's irrelevant to any of the color bricks that are in this area, so fitting in would be good. The point that was made earlier about the variety of pattern along that facade, as is now the case, that even though it runs along all the facades for the stores are different, all those emblems develops a patterning that is typical to scale across the street, which does that very same kind of thing. So architecturally, that would be useful to do. You also deep dope.
I'm sorry, we're gonna hear you.
Okay.
Just trying to move that closer, I think.
Yeah. And when you look across the facade there, if you take a look at the 3 stores near the build above, they each have different characters. They have different kind of colors. They have different kind of patterns in it. Exactly same thing in the retail area across the way. So regaining that kind of a pattern would be useful. Same comment about differentiated stores. So there is a neighborhood feel as opposed to a downtown feel. The other thing is just the detail in the nature of the glass. The glass does not have to come to the side. It can be set back in a residential building. The way for the square footage is all figured out, so we don't have a flat facade and get out like the rest of it. So that would be a useful thing. As far as this question, which is a difficult one, which is the penthouse. From some parts of the area, it does show and some places it doesn't show. It in fact is going to be better than the new senior housing in terms of the sheerness of the size, so I think that that's an okay thing. But I am perplexed about how the 3 retail survive. And
Exactly.
what's being done in the way of a leasing program for them, and I see dramatic changes to their square footage. You don't drive some of these things all the way through without taking them out, and you're taking them out for more than 6 months. So how do these dear 3 things survive as a commitment to this community, which you promised before? And you said before it would never be more than 6 weeks. But you said no, and I didn't believe that because there's all kinds of problems with that. So. And you're gonna have to accept it, yeah, and you're gonna have to accept for a moment. There are people in this room that work for Oliver Carr and JBG and other developers, and non-answers don't count here because we know what you're avoiding. So anyway, it's exciting. There's some good ideas. This whole idea of no parking is an interesting thing, but you've got to be open to all the issues. And that parking area behind the CVS, which is the weird parking lot, may be the solution. And that may be rational, but there's got to be a commitment. And there's got to be a commitment to not parking people out there. And you can do that, as I well know, through these games. Personally, I have it better.
Okay, we are, thank you, for those comments, because it wrapped up nicely a lot of what we were talking about. I do want to, Marilyn has been reading the chat. Have you been able to, are there common questions? Do you want to?
There is a question about the amenities area, and can you tell us more about the amenities, and will they be available to the general public or only to residents?
At this time, right now, I think we've decided that spaces are just.
So he's saying that the amenity spaces, it hasn't been determined exactly what those are at this time. Do you anticipate them being just for residents?
The one in the penthouse, probably just for residents.
Okay,
You know, we haven't really programmed the one on the lower level yet.
I think so, yeah.
okay, it's just for residents.
Okay, to what extent have energy and water efficiency, rainwater runoff, and other environmental features been incorporated into design decisions?
This project would be subject to the pre-construction code, DC pre-construction code, and stormwater management requirements. So there will be a GAR component and solar panels. We need to control our stormwater, all that's incorporated.
Is it leads? Are you doing lead certified?
We're not pursuing LEED yet, but we're early on.
I thought by law that everybody had to do like the first level lead.
50,000 square feet triggers that, we're under that requirement.
I did see solar panels on the roof.
I'm sorry.
I saw solar panels on the roof, but they are not required to pursue lead. So right now that
I would
doesn't.
say that the DC pre-construction code, just on sort of a level of equivalency, it's pretty close to B now. The DC DOE has pushed that agenda pretty heavily, so there is a pretty high requirement for sustainability as a baseline for all these buildings, even from the basic code requirement. It's one of the, DC is very progressive in that matter, so it actually, in some ways, it exceeds baseline LEED.
Can I just ask how long they anticipate construction to last?
Yes, the question was, how long is it going to take construction to go on?
It's a good question. I mean, I think it'll probably be extended trying to coordinate everything with state, keeping the retail in place, but it's hard. You guys quote back to me everything I say. So, but that's what I say here. Of a project this size, it's probably 14 to 18 months.
Okay, more than a year, less than 2.
We don't want to sit outside during the construction project. I mean, basically the retail is going to be closed. I don't see any way they would survive.
So I do believe that the retail there is beloved by this community. And I don't think that we are going to get answers because we don't know answers of their viability. But if I were going to relay one thing to the team here, the retail viability is going to be a huge component for us. Black Coffee is the institution, is the anchor over there now. So we're not going to solve it here tonight, but it's going to be at the top of our list moving forward in discussions. I think I could say that. If you, in the back, we definitely want to hear from you. Would you mind coming and saying your question up front, or I'm happy to repeat it if you just want to stand up. Hey, Joe.
So is the HVAC gonna be on top of the penthouse?
The question,
Also,
go ahead.
on that parking lot is simply gonna be the site of the next higher construction in this neighborhood. It's not gonna be available. It might be there for a year or two, but.
So the question is the HVAC going to be on the penthouse level on the top of the roof? And the comment was the CVS lot is not going to be there in perpetuity.
Yes, the mechanical would be relocated, well, all the new mechanical equipment.
So
Just to confirm, it's the 5th floor and then it will go
Yeah,
up
what's
on
on
the
the
5th
penthouse?
floor?
Low mechanical units, less than 40 feet.
That's it. Green roofs?
Most of the building is covered.
for those of you at home, there's going to be some, a green roof. And so you've got the top level and then the penthouse setback. Are the units on top of the penthouse?
Right now, that's the.
Okay, you will not be able to see them from the street.
Can I just clarify, when you say HVAC, are we talking about kitchen exhaust?
So they are going to, correct me if I'm wrong, on the drawings, it has all of the condenser units for each of the 19 units, so they'll be fan. And then there's going to be the restaurant equipment exhaust way up there at 50 feet. It's 50 feet high.
Can I ask you a question about the trellis on this coffee plaza or whatever you want to call it? Is that a firm design or is that just a placeholder? Okay, so that is a work in progress.
Okay, just to clarify, if you couldn't hear at home, he's asking about the starship triangle over the plaza area. It is up for discussion on what that looks like. So we'll be working on that as we move forward in this
And then
process.
secondly, there's also public space, as you can see on that, all the way to that far curve, and you guys would take care of the landscaping of that as well.
Yeah, I think that, well, that would certainly be upgraded. I can't speak to the long term of that, but we should get. Weigh in on that, yeah.
Okay, Jen Felton.
Okay, the building looks like the house, the building shot in yard of it by, the old Sears. Are you guys going to require a window, are you putting in standard window treatment, or will everyone just see into those giant windows?
So
Like, what's the rule on that, if we provide?
So the question is for the retail spaces, I mean, the residential spaces have a lot of glass. Will the landlord provide window treatments on those spaces?
Yeah, typically we have their shades provided.
Okay, typically window shades are provided because people change. Yes.
I just, the next presentation, want to see a plain, flat elevation drawing so we can see the penthouse and whatever is on top of the penthouse. Because these perspective drawings seem a tad manipulated to me. Because they're not really showing how many stories are on basic MacArthur Apartments. And it's certainly going to be visible. It might not be visible if you're standing right next to the building. It'll certainly be visible from across the street. So if it's going to be a 5-story building, let's see a 5-story building.
Okay, so the comment there, and it is a very good one, is we want to see some architectural elevations so that we can see exactly what is going to be on the roof that some people, especially the people across the street, can see. And can we get provided those?
Sure. And we are in the record, but we will incorporate that into our next presentation.
Oh, in fact, so the BZA application has been submitted. We will post it to the listservs.
sticking with the structure, I'm looking at the building section. I don't see an elevator. Is there one or is this a walk up?
There's no way.
Okay, all right, thank you.
In the back.
I've got a couple questions. First off, on the parking, can you tell me how many units are gonna be in the Balfour development?
Oh, 100, it's somewhere between 130, 150. Most of those, very few residents will have cars.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, really? On what basis are you making that?
I think it's gonna be 40% memory, so none of them drive.
What are you talking about? My mother's 93, she drives.
Is your memory care housing though?
Okay, I'm just saying 40%, okay, so we cannot, we're gonna talk about this, but I would love to say afterwards and talk to you all
I just
about
wanna
that
know how
because,
many spots and how many units are in that?
oh, they have a lot of parking.
Some of them are off the top of my head.
We can get,
Yeah,
I mean, they have a
there's a lot.
garage level and a half for staff mostly, and then they have a fleet of cars that use to move around their residence.
No, these people have no family and friends that's gonna come park in our neighborhood to visit them, right?
There's also, you know, I think.
Yeah. Is it,
Sir, I'm the PCA liaison for that development, and I would be happy to get you.
Okay, I'm just concerned because this development, which you folks are gonna consider, there's now 18 spots up on the roof. And I can tell you, most of those spots are taken every single day, okay? But now they're gonna add 19 units. And we're not even gonna have the 18 spots that we have. They're gonna reduce them to 6. Then we have 4 parking spots out front that are also gonna be gone. So we had 22 spots now, and we're gonna go down to 6.
we
So
are
where are those
well,
people- where are those people? So that's just current use. That's not adding 19
Correct.
residents.
We are
who
aware.
don't have memory loss.
we are,
Where are the 22 people who now use this parking gonna go? And where are the 19 people? And don't tell me the 19 people aren't gonna have cars. That's absurd.
okay, I would just like to state for the record that I am not the proponent of this project. I'm moderating a meeting, but I will say this. Every single person in this room has that exact same concern. And it's going to be like the businesses staying open and what is the neighborhood gonna look like with all of this parking are gonna be the top 2 issues that we're discussing from now until September
Okay,
20.
well, one issue which has not been discussed is the BZA relief that they're asking for. They've said nothing about what they're asking.
Yes, they have. If there'd be opening remarks,
Okay.
They are
the
not-
rear yard setback, where would that be and how much footage are you asking them to waiver? of?
It's a 15-foot setback. that's
15-foot setback. And that would be on B Street opposite the library.
It could be B or farther.
That's fine. So instead of 15 feet where you can have trees, you're gonna have a 5-story building with shiny glass. Is that what you're saying?
Well, there's no setback requirement for the ground floor. There's no setback requirement for the ground floor. It's just the residential above.
5 stories.
The 3 stories above the retail.
because remember, and again, it's a retail level. And then they have the parking deck level, which is a little bit shorter. Then they have 2 standard floor plans of residential and then the penthouse.
Fine. So instead of having it set back on B Street, you're gonna, and on MacArthur? Or just
No,
on
the
B Street?
MacArthur right now, I believe it's 19 feet off the curb.
So why should the community give up 15 feet of light and air for you folks to make more money?
Well, typically, there is no rear yard requirement when you have the confluence of the street. So when you look in the regs, they recognize that the streets provide the light and air that would otherwise be provided. So this isn't the typical area because we are a triangular lot. If we were at a normal corner, we would be seeking the relief. So it's just really one of those, but here we have the.
But you're required by
We
law
are.
to have.
And
the
because of the
15%.
triangular.
That's one of their
configuration
things
of the lot,
that they're asking for a relief and the other one is
So I'm
loading.
asking, why should the community represented by the ANC, why should they agree to giving you 15 more feet? Which I don't know what the square footage is. Why should we allow a 5-foot building to go all the way up instead of going 15 feet back? Just asking you to tell the community why we should, say that that's a good idea.
Right, and I would say that the challenge in providing that 15-foot setback is to the floor plan of the building. The floor plan becomes completely inefficient given the triangular shape of that property.
And so we lose out and you get more profit because you can build more apartments.
It'll be something that we will take into account when the ANC is gonna be spending months on this, trying to figure out, yeah.
You're asking for input.
Yes, and I hear,
Residents,
yes.
I'm giving you input. Secondly, what about the loading requirement? Where would that be located instead of taking the 4 parking spots? Where would the law require you to have that loading dock?
On site.
So like,
So why,
in the
why
garage.
should we give up 4 spaces in front of the stores that we love? And we're giving up the 12 spaces on the roof. Why should we give up an additional 4? So you don't have to provide a loading dock in your unit.
Again, it's a challenge with the trucks. It would be very difficult for the trucks to make a maneuver within an interior garage. The ceiling height would really not accommodate the trucks. And given, again, the triangular shape of the lot, it would be like a 20-point maneuver for those trucks to get in and out. We can't back in and back out. Public space wouldn't allow that. So we would have to do.
You have a parking garage. Why can't the loading dock be next to parking?
That's what I'm saying, though. The floor ceiling heights to get into there would be challenging for the truck. And then once they're in, the maneuvers within that space would be challenging given the configuration of the lot. We can't back in and back out. We would have to have the configurations of the maneuvers on site.
I would just like to also point out the building as it stands today already has this relief in place. It's an existing condition. It's just that they're because it's been so long, they don't have the commercial loading on the street.
Right, but and why do we have 4 parking spots now? And once they build, we're not gonna have 4.
We asked them a bunch of questions about that because they have 2 loading areas when they don't really need it. And it's sort of going to be part of further processing on what that will look like.
Last point, your drawings are a little deceptive because they don't show the penthouse and the HVAC on top. I noticed that there are buildings across the street from you that are more than 1 story high. Those people are going to see the penthouse and the HVAC on top.
We're
I'm
going
to ask the ANC to ask for drawings that are accurate so that you can make decision based on accurate drawings, not on drawings that say, oh yeah, we have these other stuff that we're not showing.
100% in the BZA application, they do have architectural elevations. We will be putting that out to the community and we can ask for more. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Do the current leases with the retail tenants allow you all to close them down while you do this project?
That is an excellent question for the landlord. So the question for people at home was, do the leases that the current tenants have allow the landlord to shut down temporarily?
They do. And the other thing I would add is that there's no requirement other than 3 spaces for Dodge Chrome for parking. So if we put a gate there, Black Salt, like half their employees park on the roof right now. We don't monitor that, but we could put a gate tomorrow and legally only Dodge Chrome would get 3 spaces.
Not according to the liquor license says that
We can elaborate on that further, but
so the liquor license today says that the Cafe Vino staff has to park on the roof.
I understand that, but I'd say in the lease, it's technically.
I don't know how a lease could be not compliant with a BZA ruling and an ANC settlement agreement.
Well, just to separate that out, though, that would be the ABC versus BZA. There's so many different things going on.
Fair enough, but it's an ANC settlement in order to gain support of the ANC for their Abra license.
And it does say the primary parking for the Cafe Vino employees would be on the roof.
Right.
So it's not the requirement, but the primary parking be there. And I understand that's an ABC process that was engaged in, which I want to keep separate from the BZA requirement. So I understand your point, though.
Okay, that is definitely something that's tricky. Lisa.
And so just to follow up on that question though, as the landlord in the retail tenant relationship, are there plans to accommodate that license in this plan? Because it doesn't seem that there are today.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
So if they're like, if a current tenant's license, regardless of what the lease currently says, their license mandates use of that parking up top. And so it would seem to be a disconnect to me if we're trying to preserve the retail, that we would not accommodate that necessity into the plans of this development.
So I would say that, you know, my brother-in-law owns Cafe Vino. So I know a little bit about the business. And the business has not been doing well. It's actually losing money each month to the point that, you know, I don't know how long they can sustain. They're bleeding cash. That's Black Coffee, on the other hand, is doing great. So Cafe Vino, as it is on shaky ground.
So that's
Right, they send a text message to the customer, said they're right, so that is something that, you know, that could also come into play, you know, but they're not, they're not a business that's thriving.
Well, that's unfortunate to hear. I will say that I echo everyone's comments with respect to the retail here on this block in particular. Along MacArthur, I live on B Street, I live right down the street, so I'm a neighbor to all of these uses. And this little block is the heart of our community. It is one of the hearts of our farmers market. It is where everyone meets. And I am very concerned that the retail is an afterthought in this development. And quite frankly, understanding the relationship between the owner and a current space actually leads me to believe that perhaps retail is not necessarily the forethought here, and it is a critical part of our community and of the economic viability of this entire corridor. And so while I am very supportive of additional density, I want it to be smart development, which I think is the comment I made during the ANC meeting. And so smart development, but I also really implore everyone to think through the retail portion of this. And if that retail goes away, and if there is a major impact, which there will be, it will be tough. They'll have to have overhangs to even get in. There'll be a tremendous amount of impact to these spaces. And if those spaces go away and we end up with vacancies, it will be at the detriment of our community and our commercial uses.
So those are things that, all right, so I need to call on some people at home, and I am gonna have to put an end to this meeting because the PCA has business. I'm gonna call on Alma Gates. This is not the last time we are going to hear from people on this project. Our emails are all open, and it is going to be transparent and lots of room to comment. I am going to call on Miss Gates. Can you unmute yourself, please? There you go. Alma, can you say something?
Oh, thank
Oh,
you.
yes.
Yeah, great.
I am curious to know how construction will be handled, staged, parking for construction workers. Where will all of that mess go?
I would like to add, are you willing to do a construction management agreement with the ANC?
If we think we have a problem with these units in parking, let me tell you from experience, construction parking is a huge nightmare.
Yes, they just agreed to enter into a construction management agreement with the ANC. So that will be obviously thought out in an agreement like that.
I have an additional question from the chat. Has an engineer signed off the existing hospitality mechanical capability? And how will it need to expand because of the additional height of the building?
The answer to that is not yet. I mean, we're working on some of that, mechanical design of the new building. We just haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it.
Okay, I'm gonna guess Nora.
This is just not a follow-up to a question. If something were to happen in Cafe Vino, is the liquor license transferable to the next business? And if so, then the parking?
It is my understanding that any new business that opens up has to apply for their own Abra liquor license, and they always have to come to the ANC. And our particular ANC has an agreement with every single liquor license operator on the strip. So it would not transfer.
Wouldn't transfer, but then you wouldn't be able to have something like parking employees because now there's parking spaces that will be used.
It is definitely front and center on everybody's mind. Okay, one last, and then we're gonna end.
I'm gathering from the comment earlier about school trying to get structural capability of what's there, which is support this. Are you anticipating this to be stick built?
Yes.
But the core house.
Yeah, the core would probably be, that block, basically.
And just one more comment.
Okay, I just want to say for everyone at home, there's a lot of this building going on in the city. It's called stick build. We'll talk about it another time. Your last comment?
Just echoing all the concerns about the viability of the street though. I think it's naive of any of us to think that what's in place there now is going to either survive or those leases will even extend beyond the delivery of this project. They may expire. But the most important thing, I think, on a community basis is to make sure that these are designed and equipped to be viable as future, that's in your best interest as well as our best interest. So I mentioned earlier, kitchen exhaust, it's one of the biggest issues for food and beverage operators. And I would love to see each of those three ultimately achieve that, because we need that in this community. But that is gonna have to extend obviously through the building. And so as you're planning this, the locations of those shafts are very important. Let's make these spaces as appealing and marketable and leasable as they can be.
We definitely want this building to be mixed use with restaurants, so we're gonna get these things buttoned out as we move on. I need to hand this meeting over to the PCA. So ANC meeting is adjourned.